Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing the Open Great League team that I used to become one of the first trainers in the world to hit 2,500 ELO this season. Now, I'm well aware this is somewhat of an interlude season, so the ranks stop at rank 20. However, since ELO is still active, my goals remain unchanged. Make it to 3,000 ELO. So, being one of the first to 2,500 ELO is a very good start. The team I use features a very unconventional Pokemon on the lead, Ampharos, with Credilli as the safe switch and the ever-powerful Gourgeist as the closer. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and we're off to a tough start in game number 1, beating Ampharos into Stunfisk. I'm going to be staying in this matchup for 2 Volt switches, banking some energy, and then safe switching Credilli. The moment my opponent sends in Licky, I know I should be in a pretty good spot to win this game. And that's because Credilli is going to be able to defeat Licky, winning me switch advantage, and with switch advantage, all that Stunfisk energy will go nowhere onto the Gourgeist. Licky will fire off the Shadow Ball, but Shadow Ball at -1 is not particularly threatening to the Credilli. Credilli going to be firing off another Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb lands, Licky hangs on, and Licky will be able to make it to a last-second charge attack. Shadow Ball lands, getting Credilli low. In the back is Corviknight, and things are honestly looking pretty good. Because Corviknight is going to get stuck against the Ampharos, where it's not going to be able to do much, and that Stunfisk is going to get absolutely shredded by the Gourgeist. Opponent makes a CMP sack swap here, catching the Rock Tomb and taking the knockout with Stunfisk, and I'm going to be sending in the Gourgeist. Gourgeist is just a complete wall to Stunfisk energy. They can throw Mud Bomb after Mud Bomb after Mud Bomb, and it just simply will not matter. I'm going to fire off the Seed Bomb because I need to try and lock in some damage on this Pokemon. The Seed Bomb is going to connect, and that is incredibly good for me. Here, I fire off the Shadow Ball, anticipating the catch attempt as my opponent sends in Corviknight. But my opponent reads it, they put up the shield, and that ends up being another CMP sack swap. I have to keep the health on the Gourgeist, and now I can send in Ampharos. I know that Ampharos does not get knocked out by a payback, so I'm always going to be no shielding. They go for an Air Cutter bait, and from here, I'm in a very good spot to close out this game. Brutal Swing from Ampharos will be shielded. Opponent is going to make another catch as they switch back into the Stunfisk. But unfortunately, the Stunfisk is just too low. They're going to get knocked out. Back in comes the Corviknight. Corviknight gets full switch down, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, we get an amazing lead this time. Ampharos into Shadow Talonflame. Bonus safe switches into Furret. I bank a little bit of energy on the Ampharos, and then I bring out Credilli. Credilli can do pretty okay against Furret. Furret up energy definitely makes life uncomfortable for Credilli, but Credilli is able to survive a Trailblaze and then start spamming out Rock Tombs to undo their attack boost. The opponent will put up an early shield, and I'm more than happy to shield back, because if at all possible, if I'm going to end up losing switch advantage, then I do want all shields to be down. But considering the fact that I'm still pretty healthy, I think I might be able to hold on to switch advantage. My opponent is going to end up no shielding, and they're going to make a last-second charge attack, and I do have to shield this Trailblaze. However, I'm going to exit with a Rock Tomb loaded after one more Acid, and that means I can guarantee the final shield back from the Talonflame, or they just get cleanly one-shot. Back in comes the Talonflame, firing off the Rock Tomb. They get one-shot. In the back is Tyranitar, and this could get very, very scary. I waited a turn there to see what got brought in, and then I immediately switched into the Ampharos. Trailblaze boosts me up. I'm able to make it to a Brutal Swing. This is resisted damage, but with +1 attack boost, that gets the Tyranitar very low. Tyranitar is basically the worst case scenario Pokemon that I could see in the back. One thing I have going for me is that a Brutal Swing does not one-shot Gourgeist from full. So I send in Gourgeist, Tyranitar fires off energy. That's a Stone Edge. Look at the damage. Tyranitar is an absolute monster, but thankfully we're able to escape with a win. Tough lead in the next match, Ampharos into Tinkaton. I try for a Bulldoze catch, but my opponent, they are too patient. They hold on to their energy, and now my Gourgeist is answered with Altaria. This is going to be a very tricky game. I went for a flashy, risky catch. It did not pay off, and now I'm definitely on the defensive. That Tinkaton has a massive amount of energy, and Tinkaton's energy is very, very good into this entire team. Gourgeist will fire off the Shadow Ball. Altaria is going to no shield, but they're already at another Sky Attack. I'm in such a rough spot. My opponent, if I got that catch, I would have been in a significantly better position, but by failing to catch, now my opponent is at a pretty massive advantage. I'm able to knock out the Altaria. In comes a Shadow Sableye, Gourgeist barely hangs on and makes a Shadow Ball. The Shadow Ball will inflict devastating damage. Opponent puts up the shield, and in comes Ampharos. Ampharos is the non-shadow specifically for bulk-related reasons. I can survive that foul play, fire off this Trailblaze, but my opponent makes a nice catch on a Tinkaton. Honestly, I need damage on the Tinkaton, so that's honestly not the worst. I need to get this Tinkaton as close as possible to Grass Knot range, because there's one chance for me to win this game, and that is that I acid it into Grass Knot range, and I can double up. So that way, I have a Grass Knot for the Sableye, and I have a Grass Knot for the Tinkaton. Play Rough does do quite a lot of damage. My opponent's going to get to a second Play Rough, and that's going to be getting my Credilli deep into the red. It's all going to come down to this. Credilli gets the double up. This has to be enough. I know it's resisted damage. Come on, Credilli. Grass Knot barely misses the knockout, and unfortunately, we will lose that game. Terrible lead in the next match, Ampharos into Toedscruel. I safe switch into Credilli. My opponent is going to farm up a massive amount of energy and sending out Bastiodon. This is the worst case scenario. I don't see how a game could start worse than this for this team. Toedscruel lead, Credilli, they bank a ton of energy on the Toedscruel, and then they wall all of our energy with the Bastiodon. This is an absolute nightmare. Bastiodon will fire off energy, as they are starting to get just a little bit low. Stone Edge lands, that fails to take the knockout, and here I will decide to go for the Rock Tomb. I know no matter what I throw, I can't take a knockout, so I may as well reduce their damage, so that way Ampharos will have a little bit of extra survivability. Ampharos is just going to look to get a massive amount of energy, because I want to try and boost myself up with a Trailblaze and threaten some damage into that Toedscruel. So I will farm up to the back-to-back Trailblazes. Toedscruel does have quite a bit of energy, so I am considering just throwing this Trailblaze on alignment. This is a boosted Trailblaze. It's going to do a solid amount of damage to Toedscruel. Toedscruel puts up the shield. Now it's time. In comes Gourgeist. Gourgeist is a wall to energy from Toedscruel, so I am going to be no shielding. They go for the wrap in the back. Wait, this is actually winnable. It's Steelix in the back. Steelix is going to be going straight Psychic Fangs, but I have to shield something. My defense is now at -2, and I farm up to the back-to-back Shadow Balls. These Incinerates are adding up quite a bit. These Shadow Balls will be very threatening. Opponent calls the bait, but now they're going to have to shield Seed Bombs. Seed Bomb is going to be shielded by the Steelix. I switch into the Ampharos, and I would have made the Brutal Swing, so my opponent is forced to throw energy. Psychic Fangs will knock me out. They undercharge and switch into the Toedscruel, but I'm just going to get extra damage onto the Toad. Brutal Swing lands, that doesn't do much. In comes Gourgeist. They realize I'm incinerating down. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Tough lead in the next match, Ampharos into Gastrodon. I safe switch into Credilli. Opponent is going to respond with Forretress. Back-to-back games with very tough lead and very tough mid-game matchups. However, that's what this team is built for. This team is built to be able to lose lead and swap and still be able to fight back and emerge victorious. Rock Tomb will not knock out, and they're actually running Earthquake. Earthquake will inflict some very major damage. As for Ampharos, I'm going to look to go for a one-shield farm down. I'm going to be shielding up a Rock Tomb here, but I'm going to get to exit with a ton of energy, and that energy should be very valuable into a Gastrodon. So Ampharos is absolutely loaded. Opponent sends in Gastrodon. I bring out the Gourgeist, and it's Bastiodon in the back. For an interlude season, I'm seeing a whole lot of Bastiodon, but this team does have play into Basti. Shadow Ball is going to be shielded. The fact that I have all that energy on Ampharos is very, very helpful. I'm going to be shielding up as my opponent will go for the Flamethrower and looking to try and lock in some damage. These Incinerates are slowly chipping away at Bastiodon's health. Shadow Ball into the Bastiodon is going to be no shielded. There's the switch into Gastrodon, and Gastrodon will immediately be hit with the Seed Bomb. This is double super effective damage. Gastrodon gets rocked, but Gastrodon can survive, and they make the last second Water Pulse. Water Pulse lands. It does not knock out. I bank the charge attack, and I switch into Ampharos. Ampharos going to boost up with the Trailblaze. Trailblaze takes the knockout. In comes Bastiodon. I farm up to the back-to-back Brutal Swings. I believe my opponent was 2 off here, so I could not do 2 in the move. But the moment they don't see MP-tie, I realize I may have just thrown this game. They were 3 off, not 2 off. I misremembered. Had I remembered they were 3 off, I could have done 1 extra Volt Switch and thrown a second Trailblaze into a Brutal Swing, and that would have put them in Seed Bomb range. But unfortunately, I fall agonizingly short and lose a game that I think I should have won. We get a great lead in the next match, Ampharos Talonflame. Opponent safe switches Diggersby, and arguably I should go Credilli here. The reason why I like to go Gourgeist is this way I don't really need switch advantage. because if my opponent really wants to double shield and play for switch, then their Talonflame's just going to get aligned onto Credilli, and Credilli obviously does very well there. So I actually feel pretty comfortable playing out this matchup. 2 Fire Punches failed to take the knockout, and that's solely due to the fact that with the Ghost subtyping, I am double resisting these quick attacks. I fire off Seed Bomb, they're going to be putting up a shield, so it looks like they are heavily prioritizing switch advantage. I realize that my opponent has not put me at 1 HP, so I can actually safely shield, it won't KO through the shield, and now I can threaten their final shield with Seed Bomb. They shield, now I pivot into Credilli. My opponent is now in a very difficult spot, because a Credilli up energy is obviously going to be a huge problem for Talon. Their only win con is a catch, so I overfarm to the max, click the Rock Tomb, and they try and catch the Grass Knot on a Talonflame. But all they catch is double super effective, down goes Talon, and back in comes the Diggersby. I'm going to be saving my shield for the Ampharos. If Ampharos needs it, Ampharos will have that shield to work with. I overfarm quite a bit, firing off the Grass Knot. Grass Knot will easily be taking the KO. What do they have in the back? In the back, oh my goodness, Credilli with the 3 KO sweep. It's Gastrodon, Grass Knot, double super effective, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Ampharos into Shadow Toucannon. A great lead. Toucannon throws 1 peck, safe switches into Annihilate, and I do have a very good response to Annihilate with my Gourgeist. Gourgeist, look at the Incinerates, absolutely deleting this poor Annihilate. Rage Fist lands, that gets Gourgeist low. I think I can get away with going for a Seed Bomb here. Shadow Annihilate does actually get knocked out, and that's incredibly good for me, because this means I'm only 1 Incinerate away from a second Seed Bomb. And Seed Bomb will actually do some real damage into Shadow Toucannon because of how frail this Pokemon is. Seed Bomb is going to land, and just like that, the Toucannon's almost at half HP. In comes Ampharos. I respect Toucannon's damage way too much. I'm shielding up what can only be a Drill Peck. In the back, they have Shadow Dusknoir, and I don't even know if they're going to see the Credilli at this point. The Ampharos is just too far ahead. Brutal Swing is going to be shielded. They fire off the Shadow Punch, but Ampharos should be able to get to the back-to-back Brutal Swings. Ampharos already at the back-to-back, and this opponent's fate is sealed. They just had no way through this Ampharos. They no shield. In comes Toucannon. Toucannon gets Volt Switch down, and Ampharos takes the win. We move to the next match, picking up a very nice lead, Ampharos into Shadow Fortress. Now, I don't even call this a nice lead because Ampharos' matchup is particularly good here. But this is a good lead for the team because once you get rid of the Fortress, Credilli is basically guaranteed to be good in the back. And that's because the main thing Credilli doesn't want to see is the Bug Steals. And if you see a Bug Steal on the lead, no team is ever going to have Fortress lead with Scizor in the back because that's an auto loss to any fire type. Brutal Swing number 2 will take the knockout. In comes Florges. And because I know there can't be a Scizor back there, I can now very freely safe switch into the Credilli. Credilli going to be hit with the Chilling Water. Chilling Water obviously going to reduce the damage output from this Credilli, but I'm still more than happy to play this out. Rock Tomb is going to land. That does some very nice damage, and in the back is going to be Feraligatr. Feraligatr trying to get to the Ice Beam, but they will get outpaced. I'm just going to be going straight Rock Tomb here. Rock Tomb is going to be shielded, and from here, I feel pretty comfortable just letting the Credilli go. They have the Ice Beam to knock me out. They go for a Hydro Cannon. It does not knock out, and I'm able to make a last-second charge attack. I look at my health bar, I realize I have more than 1 HP, so I can shield. The 1 HP of damage through the shield does not knock me out, and I will get a second Rock Tomb debuff. And now it's time. In comes Gourgeist. They send in Florges. They realize there's no way out, and they will concede the match. Great lead in the next match, Ampharos into Shadow Talonflame. My opponent is going to be staying in this matchup. This works out incredibly good for me. One time a Talonflame stayed in, I Trailblazed, and they called it, so this time I'm just going to be going for the Brutal Swing. They bank energy, they send in Florges, and now it's my turn to bank a Trailblaze and send in the Gourgeist. Unfortunately for my opponent, they are just completely walled here, as Florges in the Great League will typically run Chilling Water plus Trailblaze. Both charge attacks are going to be resisted by the Gourgeist. They're so far ahead on energy that they're going to consistently be able to do 2 in the move, 2 in the move, and once again 2 in the move. So now I have a -3 Gourgeist on my hands. They Chilling Water me once again, and their final Pokemon is revealed to be Feraligatr. This is a -3 Shadow Ball. That's not going to do much, but what is going to hurt is a Trailblaze from Ampharos. Ampharos firing off the Trailblaze. Trailblaze is going to connect, taking the knockout. Back in comes the Florges. Florges going to be hit with the Trailblaze as well. Ampharos just boosting up more and more and more. Trailblaze number 2 will take the KO. In comes Talonflame. Look at that Incinerate go. In comes Credilli, and my opponent will concede the match. Very tough opponent in the next match, and we lead Ampharos into Alolan Ninetales. However, the moment I see this lead, I feel that I'm at a very large team comp advantage in this game. And that's because Alolan Ninetales leads always have to have waters in the back. And waters in the back obviously are really not going to like my double grass backline. My opponent is going to be firing off the Weather Ball. They're going to get another Weather Ball before I'm able to make my move. So I'm going to shield, and if 2 more Volt Switches don't knock out, I'm going to snipe with an Acid. They survive on 1 HP, but we snipe down with the Acid, and the moment my opponent sends in a Azumarill, basically my fears have been confirmed. Well, fears is probably the wrong word, but at this point I know I've won the game because my opponent is just incredibly weak to Credilli. I fire off the Rock Tomb first because I know that even if I Grass Knot I can't farm down after, so there's no reason to not go for that move, and it's Stunfisk in the back. And yeah, unfortunately there was really nothing that my opponent could do here. Grass Knot lands, I send out the Gourgeist, and Gourgeist is just a complete wall to Stunfisk. Stunfisk can fire off Mud Bombs, but Gourgeist just simply does not care. It's one of the reasons why I really like Gourgeist, is Gourgeist is so good at shutting down so many common meta threats. Gourgeist is going to be no shielding once again, as Mud Bomb after Mud Bomb is going to connect. There's going to be the switch into Azumarill, and I will fire off the Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb is going to be shielded. I get to farm up to 2 more Seed Bombs, and my opponent will resign the match. Hopping to the final match, and we get an amazing lead Ampharos into Shadow Empoleon. Empoleon throws a Metal Sound, retreats into Goodra, but unfortunately for Goodra, it's going to be swiftly countered with Credilli. Credilli has an incredibly dominant matchup against Goodra because Goodra, even though it's able to spam on Aqua Tails very quickly, Aqua Tail really doesn't do a lot of damage. So Credilli is more than happy to absorb multiple Aqua Tails, return fire with the Rock Tomb, and then suddenly that already low damage output gets even lower. And then Credilli can go for a very aggressive full Acid farm down, and Credilli's going to exit very low, but with a Charge Attack loaded, and that is the best case scenario for me. As this means that I'm going to get a Grass Knot into the Empoleon, which is going to do some pretty nice damage, and the Empoleon is not really going to get a lot of farm. In comes Ampharos, in the back is Ludicolo, and this game is over. Ampharos' Trailblaze no shielded by the Ludicolo, but look at the Volt Switches go. My opponent still has 2 Protect Shields, and I can just commit to a win con that involves farming them down. I think if I undertap the Trailblaze, then I can boost up the Volt Switch, so that way a +2 Volt Switch will actually KO the Ludicolo. Ludicolo will put up the shield. Ludicolo surviving on 1 HP to force a shield from Ampharos, but it's not going to matter. They have to switch in Empoleon. Look at the damage, and I can send in the Gourgeist. Gourgeist very comfortably survives Drill Peck from Empoleon. We get the farm down. In comes Ludicolo. Ludicolo gets incinerated down, and we're able to secure the 5-0 set. My encounter for the 5-0 set was a Lapras, and after claiming that, I get to claim the ELO from the 5-0 set, which takes me up to 2537 ELO, which I'm pretty confident if leaderboards were out now would, at absolute worst, be top 10, probably top 5 in the world. I'm aware that this is a very unorthodox team, but I feel like that kind of fits the overall quasi-interlude season theme. Ampharos is not a Pokemon that is typically run in the Open Great League, but I do think it is surprisingly powerful. I view it as the premier electric type in the meta, just because it's an electric type that can hit back for super effective against ground type. Now, you're not going to win static matchups against the ground types, but against a lot of leads, like a Steelix lead or a Stunfisk lead, I like farming up until right before their charge attack and then safe switching into Credilli, because later on, if I'm able to get some kind of energy advantage or shield advantage, then I can boost up and really make life difficult for them. I've lost count of the amount of Mud Slappers that has gotten KO'd by Ampharos, and that's just because Ampharos' up energy actually ends up being surprisingly flexible. I know last season I ran a version of this team that had Toedscruel as the third, and I think Gourgeist just does what Toedscruel did, but substantially better. Gourgeist obviously absolutely destroys some of the bug steel types that were a bit of a problem for the previous version of the team, and I do really like the fact that whereas Toedscruel was completely helpless into flyers, at the worst case scenario, Gourgeist at least has Shadow Ball for them, so Gourgeist ends up being more flexible. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.